Salut! Today we have a look at a lens that I was using during 1 year, my first macro lens, the 60mm 7ARTISAN Mark II. So before buying that Laowa 65mm ultra macro that I like very much, which has a magnification ratio of 2:1, I was using during 1 year that 7ARTISAN 60mm macro, always attached to 2 extension tubes, which is the equivalent of 31mm, 13mm plus 18mm. And I discovered yesterday during a test that I did for you that actually this setup has a magnification ratio very close to 2:1. This is a photo taken with the R7 and just the 7ARTISAN without extension tubes. And I'm focusing on the eyes here. This is a bill of 100 Filipino pesos. This is taken with the 7ARTISAN plus 31mm of extension tubes, and you can see a big jump in magnification. And this is just the Laowa without extension tubes, and you can see that the eyes is just a bit bigger than the 7ARTISAN plus 31mm of extension tubes. And this is the Laowa with 31mm of extension tubes, and we have probably here a magnification ratio of more than 2.5 to 1. I'm guessing. So we have some big clouds coming from the west right now, which brings a bit of wind, and that's kind of rare in my field here. So with that lens you will have a hard time to take pictures if your subject is very small. I think I would not bother anymore if my subject is under 5mm, for example. And you can still get good pictures, but I'm not sure we can call that macro anymore, because your subject is not filling the frame anymore and you don't have those beautiful details. This one is more minimalist than macro, for example, and if we crop a lot, it's still cute but very soft, even with the 32 megapixel of my R7. Here another 2mm jumping insect, and surprisingly good enough. So something I forgot to tell you, all the pictures and the video that you will see from now are taken with that 7ARTISAN 60mm Mark II without any extension tubes, just the 1:1 ratio of magnification. So what about that lens? That lens is very compact, very small, feels very solid, mostly metallic. It has a metallic gasket, which is nice for a very inexpensive lens. This is 74.5mm long. It has a diameter of 60mm. It weighs 339 grams. It has 9 aperture blades. I have no complaint whatsoever about the bokeh. The focus ring is very smooth, and even though it is not very wide, I did not notice any difficulty focusing, except for other stuff that are not macro related. For example, I was trying to take a picture of that horse to show you what it can do with portrait, and I had a hard time to focus on the eyes of that horse. The aperture ring go from f2.8 to f22. There is no clicks compared to my Laowa. The cap lens is metallic, and unfortunately there is no mechanism for it to stay well in place. So a few more things. That lens has a minimum focus distance of 17.8 centimeters, which gives you a working distance of about 9 centimeters. This lens is available for APS-C mirrorless cameras. You can have it for, there is a web spider here. You can have it for Fuji X, Sony E, Canon EOS M or RF. Nikon Z, and Micro Four Thirds. So the pros and cons about that little lens, and we will start with the pros. Obviously you have the price, and in my opinion this is a great value for the money. This is a cheap lens. You can get it for about 150 US dollar, and it will depend where and when you live. If you live in 2040, maybe it should be very cheap. It depends, it could be also very pricey. I don't know. If you are from 2040, leave me a comment and tell me what do you think about the price. Anyway, this lens is very compact. It is lightweight, relatively lightweight, because there is some good glass inside. That brings me to the next pros, the sharpness. This lens is very sharp. So the cons, you have no weather sealing, you have no image stabilization, which is perfectly normal for that very low price. What bothers me a bit more is that lens cap, or lens cap, which is very weak, and it will fail you sometimes in your bag if you don't find a way to fix that problem. It's very hard to focus on things that are not macro related, and yeah, if you want to photograph your family or your dog or anything, especially your dog, if he's moving, you will have a very hard time to focus on his eyes, especially wide open. So that also that aperture ring is placed in the front, which I don't really like. My Laowa is placed at the rear of the lens, at the back. So sometimes you are between branches and that can touch the aperture rings and move it a bit. So you have to constantly check at which aperture you are. Also it doesn't have clicks. And now I'm very used to my Laowa. I know if I go all the way clockwise, I will be at f22, and if I just double click to the left, I know I will be at f11. Here I have no idea. I have to push up my flash diffuser and try to see where I am at. And there is no electronics. So once you are home, you will find no information, for example, about your aperture. And I think that's it. If your budget is very tight, if you want to give a try to macro photography, maybe you have the camera but you still don't have a cute little sharp lens. Maybe you are doing macro but only sometimes on the weekend. I would recommend you that lens. It is very fun, very cool to use. Remember that you can always put some extension tubes and get a little bit more magnification. I am very close to 2:1 with my extension tubes. Keep in mind that if you have some extension tubes attached to your lens, you cannot anymore focus to infinity. If you have the budget, if you have more than $400, just have a look at that video. And if it's not appearing here, I will put a link on the description, video description below. I hope you liked my little video. Please like and subscribe, it helps my channel to grow. And I see you on the next one. Cheers!